Welcome to Hope is Here. My name is Greg Horn, and we are continuing our conversation with author Steve Flairty. Steve has written a series of books. He's also a former teacher for many years in our public school system, and he's a great public speaker. If you're looking for somebody to come speak at your event, great stories, as he has been all over our state of Kentucky. And we've been focusing on his series of books he's written called Kentucky's Everyday Heroes. There's 4 volumes of those, and then there's one for kids called Kentucky's Everyday Heroes for Kids. And so I would encourage you to check those out. It's so perfect with our theme of Hope is Here, because we've got people in our own state that are either providing hope through overcoming adversity and doing great things with their lives, or people that just said, you know what, I'm going to help somebody else that's got a challenge in their life. And we've told 2 great stories in our first 2 programs earlier this week when we talked with Steve. So I want to encourage you, you really need to go back and listen to the podcast. You can find both of those earlier programs I did with Steve at our website, hopeishere.today. That's hopeishere.today. And or if you want to Google and get these books, it's Flairty, 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 Steve Flairty. Check out these books, Kentucky's Everyday Heroes. You won't be able to put them down. Well, Steve, we talked about one individual in the first 2 programs, but today we're going to try to, because there's so many great ones, man. I mean, we could do a whole year on this. These are awesome. But 3 different people. The first one here, let's talk about a lady that, man, she had to exhibit forgiveness. Bettie Johnson. Tell us a snapshot of her story.
Bettie L. Johnson. If I've ever heard a story about forgiveness, she was an African-American lady brought up poor in the early 1900s in Louisville, and lost her father when she was 4 years old. Ended up, I think her older sister was 10 years older than her. Ended up spending a lot of time with her mother, did a lot of reading and so forth. Very bright, very smart young lady. Early 1900s, though, there was something called the Day Law in Kentucky that basically wouldn't allow African-American people to be in the same classroom as whites. And so she did well, did great in her schools, wanted to go to the University of Louisville and wanted to go to that main campus. She was not allowed to go for the Day Law reason. So she ended up going to another part of that college, although not the main part of it. Ended up getting a good education because there were a lot of black teachers who couldn't get jobs, but even though they were well qualified and taught there and got a good education, she did very well. Later went to University of Indiana and got a master's degree and so forth. She went through years working in education, some jobs with the Justice Department, was able to have a resourceful career money-wise. Married a person who had a lot of money because of his job and so forth. He died at an early age. She later met a person who was 40 years old when she was 68 years old, and he wanted to marry her, and it was all legitimate and it was good. And
he'd actually played football in the NFL.
He saw something good about her, and so let me get to the point here, though. Years later, she became her and her husband became a great benefactor for that University of Louisville that would not allow her to be in the regular campus because of the color of her skin. And she got a call from the president of the University of Louisville some years ago,
Dr. Shoemaker,
and said, come over. We got a special thing we want to let you know about. And the Bettie L. Johnson Dormitory Hall was named after a person who was not allowed to be at that university. A beautiful, beautiful dorm. What a great example of forgiveness. Let me tell you about the can man down at River, Kentucky, down in Johnson County. Heard about this man and went down there.
That's Eastern Kentucky,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Paintsville, I think, maybe?
Yeah, the Paintsville area. And they call him the can man because he would go out alongside the road and pick up aluminum cans. He'd go to parking lots, pick up aluminum cans. you saw them all over that area. Not only River's a small, very small burg, I guess, but throughout
or a holler, as I
a holler.
My dad's from Inez,
yeah,
so I can say that.
Yeah. But it's really beautiful down there. I was down there checking out his terrain. But he takes that money, and well, he's passed now. But he would take that money, over $36,000 worth of aluminum cans that he sold at recycling plant nearby, and would take it over to the Johnson County Christian School. As soon as he got that money, sign it over, and give that money to the Johnson County Christian School for to give scholarships for those who wanted that kind of education and couldn't afford it. And he told me, he says, I don't even take my gas out of it.
Yeah.
But he was a person who had lived a life far from God early in his life, and he came closer and had people that encouraged him along the way, and he became a great encouragement. He was out with a friend of his in a pickup truck and got T-boned at an intersection. Was in the hospital. He got out. He continued to pick up his cans. He had people that would make fun of him as he was doing that, doing God's work.
Said he was self-righteous.
He was self-righteous, or he called him a evil snake, or something like that. And I remember 2 or 3 times when interviewing him, he says, I forgave them. He was so proud that he forgave them. And that just helped me so much in my own life, And he passed a couple years ago. But again, as I mentioned before, the fact that we are talking about his life, this humble life of a person they called the Can Man down in River, Kentucky, hundreds and I think thousands of people have heard this story, and this is sort of I don't know, just sort of a conservation story to the glory of the Lord.
Yeah, well, and I love the story part. One, obviously, what humility you talked about in your book, Everyday Heroes. The chapter on him that you told of his life, that $36,000 in 16 years, said it was almost 3 million cans.
Yeah.
And then the best part to me though was that you talked about him following. Accepting Jesus later in life. He spent 23 years in the U.S. Air Force, followed that with a 14-year stint as a manager at a liquor store in Ohio, but he left after a religious conversion. And so I got to think the guys that knew him from the Air Force and other later, they hear your story.
Is that really you, Charles?
Really, Charles Whitaker that I know. So it's just so good. I want to encourage our listeners that God never gives up on anybody, and maybe you've been praying for a long time for somebody. And as I've shared many times on Hope Is Here, my dad didn't humble himself and accept Jesus till almost the age of 50, and that was after a heart attack, and the company he worked for got bought out, and he thought he might lose his job. So keep praying, because my dad was literally transformed, and obviously Charles Whitaker was too. All right, who else? Tell us about another great hero that provided hope.
Let me tell you about Sue Sword, who grew up in Melvin, Kentucky, in eastern Kentucky, down in Floyd County. And she was, like, as she said herself, so many eastern Kentucky families growing up back in the 40s and so forth, they didn't have a lot. But they were frugal. They worked hard. She had a heart for the people, even as a child, for the people in Floyd County. And I don't know, maybe her dad had a deal with the sheriff or something, but she could be found as a 7th grader in a station wagon out delivering things to shut-ins in the area.
When you say delivered, you mean driving?
Correct? I mean driving station wagon.
Driving is okay. I just want to clarify that, not on her bike. But
Yeah. So she had a sense early in those days of others and their plight, and she cared for them. So she worked hard, smart young lady, became a school teacher for a while, developed some expertise in finances, and got on a couple Kentucky governor's staffs in economic development, John Brown and then Brereton Jones, and it was involved in some really high level trade and those kinds of things. Had some real skills. This woman who grew up humbly in Melvin, Kentucky, and she later took this, never forgetting where she came from, and this care and her skills, to become the chief fundraiser for Christian Appalachian Project, which is a great organization that's based in Kentucky that helps poor throughout Appalachia, starting here basically in Kentucky. And some of our audience here is probably very familiar with some of the work in terms of housing and also encouraging people in job-related kinds of things, and just, and being there and flood relief and those kinds of things. And has in her career there, she's retired now, but in her career was able to bring millions and millions of dollars to the organization, or in-kind donations. And I believe so much of that had to do with this. She had some skills to do that, but this deep passion and knowing her people and knowing their needs, and using those experiences that she grew up with to help others. There's another thing about her story, Greg, that I really appreciate. I feel like she was very authentic in her place with the company, because she relayed this to me back in 2004. She didn't feel that CAP had did as good as they could have in helping some Eastern Kentuckians and Western Kentuckians, West Virginians in a big flood, and actually came out and said, we messed up, we should have done a whole lot better. Didn't make excuses. And I think that kind of thing almost maybe even made the organization even stronger with that kind of leadership. Sue Sword is a highly respected individual in her retirement now, and I'm just so proud that of how you can take a person from very humble beginnings, who has a strong sense of where they're from and who those people are that they grew up with, and are able to grow over the years in your skills, and able to move those people that you love ahead in the way you conduct your life. And Sue Sword certainly has done that.
Well, no doubt. Powerful story. Sue Sword, Eastern Kentucky girl, just did a phenomenal job with the Christian Appalachian Project, as Steve said. And I mean, there are so many great stories from these books. Unfortunately, we're out of time, but man, I love these books. I want to encourage you. Hope is Here is about giving you hope and encouragement in trying to get over challenges in your life. And man, if you're looking for a good read, these are short books but powerful books. There's 4 volumes of them. They're called Kentucky's Everyday Heroes by author Steve Flairty, who's been our guest this week. Flairty. I love the subtitle, Ordinary People Doing Extraordinary Things. And these are Kentuckians that are providing hope both for others and through their own lives, overcoming extreme obstacles. Steve, what's the best way for people to get these books?
You can get them on Amazon, or if you can find me on Facebook, it's Steve Flairty, Flairty. Message me. I would love to get you a copy locally here, Versailles. You can go to Marketplace on Main. So also, I love to tell these stories out there at your group meetings and so forth. So Kiwanis Club, Seniors Christians Group, whatever,
Lions Club,
travel,
Lions,
the whole thing. I love to get out and tell. I've told this week 4 or 5 of these stories, and I have over 100. And very often when I go out and speak, I get another one while I'm there. So get a hold of me, and I appreciate that.
Well, you do a great job. You really would. So we want to thank Steve Flairty for being our guest this week on Hope is Here. Man, make sure you check out the other 2 programs on our website, hopeishere.today. I'm Greg Horn. We'll see you tomorrow on Hope is Here.